In this video, we will be working on the portion of Chapter 16 about background images. The files you need are the background images HTML file and the Egypt.png file. To place an image behind any HTML element, we use the background image property, and for the value URL, an opening and closing parentheses, and then inside that, in double quotes, the path to the background image. Let's do that for our example. You'll see that we're using an embedded style sheet for simplicity. Let's add that background image to the body. Background image, URL. Now the URL will be relative to where you have your HTML file. In this case, we have the ping file, the image file that we want to use as a background, in the same folder as background images. So we can just type in the name directly. Save that. Right now, the default is a white background, but since we added a background image, now we will see that Egypt.png file on there as the background. Now this Egypt.png file is not as big as this browser window. In fact, it's only 150 by 102 pixels. It's only this big. So what that means is that it's repeating itself to fill its container horizontally and vertically. If you don't want the background image to repeat itself, then you will need to use the background repeat property and then any one of these three values. If you want it to repeat horizontally only, then use the repeat X. If you want it to repeat vertically only, use repeat Y. Or if you only wanted to put itself on there once, use the no repeat value. Let's try each one. Background repeat, repeat X for repeating it horizontally only. That's what we see there. Repeat Y for repeating itself vertically only. And no repeat for placing itself on there just once. This is only 150 by 102 pixels. This file's actual size. The next background property is attachment, and this has to do with whether or not the background image will scroll up and down as you move the page. To illustrate this, we'll need to add some content to our HTML document. Let's add a couple of divs with a paragraph in each one. Since there's a background color, or a background image, let's just add a background color to the div so that we could see the text on there. Let's give it color of white, fixed width of 500 pixels, a height of 500 pixels, and we'll just center that in our browser window. Also, let's comment this out because I actually want the background image to repeat. That's what we have there, two divs centered, and when I scroll up and down to see more of the content, the background image moves along with it. If I want it to stay in place, that's when I have to use background attachment fix. So the default, without even specifying it, is background attachment scroll. If we don't want it to move, we'll use background repeat with a value, or I'm sorry, not background repeat, background background attachment fixed. Such that now when I scroll up and down, the background image stays in the same place. All right, for the next property, background property, it's about positioning, and this only applies to situations where the image, the background image, is not being repeated. So this time we'll just comment the background attachment out, and we will bring this back since it only applies when the background image is not being repeated. And let's take this second div out. Save that and refresh our preview. So it's only repeating itself once, and by default you can see that it puts itself in the top left corner. However, you do have an option on where you can place that based on how big your container is. Using the background position property, for the first value, that would be for the horizontal position, whether you want it to be left, center, or right in its container. And then for the second value, if you do put one, you can put in top, center, or bottom. Now again, this has to do with the size of the container. If you leave the second value out, then the vertical position will default to center. So right now, by default, it's on the top left. But say you want it to be like right here. We'll have to comment out the background color so that we can see that. So it'll get covered up. And then background position. First value, we want it centered. And then for the second value, so the first value is horizontal, the second value vertical, we want it to stay at the top. Refresh that, and now there it is. So that's in relation to the container. So what I mean by that is, it will be, well, here, I'll demonstrate. Say we change this to bottom. So center bottom, refresh. It's not actually going to put itself way down here at the bottom of the browser window. It will just put itself at the bottom of its container. In this case, the entire web page is only as tall as this div, which happens to be 500 pixels tall. So it's at the bottom of this 500 pixel height. Let's just leave the second value out then and say right. So the horizontal positioning is right, but it will default to center for the vertical position because we left it out. In the next video, we'll be doing background shorthand.